There's Triple C, there's For Us, there's APA, and the Patriotic Zimbabwe Party with Charles Mutama. So we're just expecting them to join us shortly, and then we will begin. Please stay put. We will begin shortly. So, in case you're just joining us, you are tuned into Open Pali. The platform is the Twitter rally, and today we are focusing on electoral reforms. To what extent is the opposition in Zimbabwe serious about electoral reforms? I see one of our guests is already here. Nyasha Goredema is the Alliance for People's Agenda, that's APA spokesperson. Welcome to the program, Nyasha.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's get right into it. Nyasha, today we're talking about the reforms, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak for 10 minutes while we also wait for the other panelists. They will come in and tell us their own side of the story. So I'll give you 10 minutes to explain the extent to which electoral reforms are important from your party's perspective in the upcoming 2023 elections, and then what your party has done in the past, what it's doing now to advocate for those reforms, and also throw in some challenges and some successes if there are any. Please go ahead. Your 10 minutes begin now.
Thank you so much, Lynette. Good evening to everyone in the space. Thank you so much for attending. I'm Nyasha, and I am the APA spokesperson. So, as a political party, we first and foremost see it as our duty to socialize and educate voters and citizens in the functioning of the political and electoral system and just the general generation of political values. And we most importantly also want to do that within ourselves as APA members. So, since our inception in 2017, we have been undertaking this sometimes very hard task, especially in the environment we find ourselves in Zimbabwe, where APA likes to believe it as in social democratic norms, especially democracy and meritocracy, but we find it extremely difficult and sometimes to our own dismay that the playing field and just essentially the system, electoral system, and just political processes in Zimbabwe do not demonstrate what our values are. And I think that then emphasizes to us that our existence then is crucial because we want to be that example of what true democracy, true meritocracy, true education, true socialization of political values that are sound to come from us and to be generated by a democratic society. So, as much as there have been challenges, we soldier on and carry on doing so. So, as I was saying before, that most importantly, we do that within ourselves. We try to enter spaces where we can educate ourselves better. We believe in durable forms of democracy. We are not very much into populism rhetoric where people stand and say some promises without any policy structure. We want to be the party that has policy structure. So we get into the arena of where these players are. So we try and participate in stakeholder discussions where we can. ZEC has been having some stakeholder discussions for the past couple of months since last October, and they've been doing a lot in the first half of this year. And as APA, we have participated in these. We want to see the so-called underbelly that is ZEC. So we have participated in a lot of youth conferences. We have sent our youth in APA to go and see what the ZEC commissioners have to say about youth political participation. We've sent our national organizing secretary to go and see what ZEC has to say about delimitation, as that is, of course, the national organizing secretary's area of interest. We've sent our secretary general to go and see what ZEC has to say about election preparedness. So we have been participating in these spaces that we find ourselves in as a political party and interrogating ZEC and interrogating its commissioners and asking X, Y, Z, why hasn't this happened? Some of the interrogations that we have done has been to ask them about, of course, electoral reforms as we're here today to discuss. We believe that is on the onus of all opposition to prove that if they allege, they must prove. And we have seen in our research and policy research that there has been some inconsistencies with ZEC and their voters roll, the way they do registration, the blitzes, etc. So we went there with our documentation, our research, asked them. And of course, they will, speak on the greatest aspect of on their behalf. No one is going to try and incriminate themselves. But to our honest surprise, they came out and said, "Oh, there has been some inconsistency that we have noted, etc., and so forth." So, just to touch on the electoral reforms that APA has been researching on and taking to the actual stakeholder, we deem it important that the media and the way the media is separated in Zimbabwe right now to be a problem. We've got the Zimbabwe Media Commission that is, of course, licensed to approve journalists and broadcasters, etc. And the media plays an important role in helping citizens to hold elected officials accountable. So, access to information by voters and equal access to the electorate by parties and candidates is important so that the people can be objective. But that's not happening on the ground. Mostly, the biggest public broadcasters, which are like the state media, only talk about one party in particular, and if they do talk about other parties, such as the CCC, to name one, they talk in a very not flattering fashion, and that's not objective. And we are very worried about how media is going to be reformed in time for the electoral reforms, because it's very important that we regularize our media so that we can hold a transparent election. It's not just on the electoral processes of ballots and etc to be transparent. It's also on stakeholders in media to be transparent, to then give to voters clear, objective views so that people can make informed decisions. Are we also very, very concerned that licenses that have been given to broadcasting people seem to be aligned and associated with the government? So we wonder how private are these players. It's looking like there's a homogeneity of views on the media space, and that is a problem. And APA, we have been fighting for that. We have taken the discussion to the stakeholders to know a great answering and etc. But we do try, so that's what we've been doing. Another electoral reform question is, the constitution says every citizen of Zimbabwe should have the right to vote. So the fact that that is the apex of our constitution, where is the diaspora vote? Where is the opportunity for Zimbabwean citizens all over the world who are Zimbabwean citizens who haven't renounced their citizenship? How come they can't vote? We have tasked ourselves in investigating in Parliament, etc., and all of that, to no avail. They say that the discussion is going to happen was supposed to happen earlier this year, and they cited COVID, etc., and so forth. So the discussion keeps being put on the back burner, which is very concerning for us. In line with the public interface, another thing that needs to be heavily tackled is the conduct of traditional leaders. As per the dictates of our constitution, traditional leaders must not further the interests of any political party or candidate, or in any way show that they are partisan to any party. And compliance of that is paramount, because we need to ensure a balanced political and electoral environment, as I was saying with the media. And we haven't really been seeing this. There have been reports even from other chiefs in other areas, showing partisan views, etc. And there hasn't been any sanction at a higher structured mainstream level to make sure that this is not the case. We're really concerned about that in the upcoming elections. It's been a very difficult space to enter, to get into the especially rural areas and tackle that. Those are spaces that us as opposition really struggle with because of the censoring that the people put themselves under, because of the political climate that is more charged that they live in. So we have tried to engage the relevant stakeholders in that discussion. It has been proven quite difficult, but we won't stop. There's nothing that is shouldn't be done. We will keep on doing that. Another thing that we are concerned about as electoral reforms that APA has been pushing for.
Sorry,
Yes.
Nyasha. This is going to be your last point.
Okay, sure. Another concern that is the security services, the respecting of fundamental rights and freedoms. The display of the security services during the by-elections is a concern to us. And we hope that towards the end of, well, the beginning of 2023 elections, that is rectified. And okay, I suppose I can't get into how we will advocate, but those are the top views that we have. And just as a last point, I'm sorry, is the executive seems to have a lot of powers in appointing judges and exec commissioners. That is something that we're very concerned about. How can a player, be a referee when it comes to our elections? It then makes our contestation of the election, which always happens in Zimbabwe, quite difficult to handle because judges are appointed by the executive and then they sit on the election committee that takes in mandates on people complaining about the results, etc. So that's the electoral reform that we're pushing for, to streamline the executive, where it's not just the executive that appoints constitutional judges and exec commissioners.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Thank you very much for that, Nyasha. So Nyasha is from the Alliance of People. Am I saying that correctly? That's
Alliance with the
APA,
People's
right?
Agenda. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. So she is the spokesperson, and she was talking to us about some of the issues that they have, that they're working on. She says that they're educating, and they know that they're a party that does not want to look at promises without structure. They believe in structure. They have been having consultations with ZEC. They've sent a couple of their youth to interfaces with ZEC and highlighted some inconsistencies around the reforms they're looking forward to, media reforms, the issue around licensing. They also speak about the vote, the right to vote, the diaspora vote. There are a lot of Zimbabweans in the diaspora. Why are they not being given why are they not being allowed to exercise their constitutional right? Nyasha also talks about the conduct of traditional leaders. The traditional leaders are supposed to be non-partisan, but what have we seen on the ground? She says that the political climate in those rural areas are highly charged, and as a result, there's a lot of censorship in those areas. And then the issue around appointment of judges and commissioners. Nyasha here is bemoaning the fact that a player is also, someone who's also supposed to be a player is the referee in the game as well. So it's becoming an appointing authority. But we will go to for us. So the freedom of rights under sovereign, that's for us a party. The president is President Irene Muyenziwa. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, Lynette, and everybody else who has joined this platform. It's a very, I think, a sensitive topic, a very important topic when it regards to electoral reforms in the concern of Zimbabwe. What we have tried to do as a party ourselves is try and look at, I think, the issues that I think President Charles has voiced out. I think debating on key issues is something that has been silent. Looking at, I think, opposition parties that have been there before for us, and these are some of the things that we looked at and saw that actually nobody pushed forward the main issues that we talk about, day in, day out, year in, year out. And before you know it, 5 years lapse and we're still back on zero ground. But what we've tried to do is to be very inclusive. I think we've held press conferences, I think, where we have answered questions where I think ZEC is feeling that is being bashed left, right, and center, of which we said, I think it's much more on a constructive criticism point of view when we air out. Sorry, my voice is very croaky because I've just been probably in 4 meetings before this one. Yeah, so it's that ZEC should take it as a constructive criticism and see, how best, we can forge forward as a country. I think, as we know, that elections play a very integral part when it comes to our democracy, and it is through these elections that a free Zimbabwe is created, or at least, hopes to create, amongst its citizens a sense of involvement in public affairs. What we've managed to do is to proffer engagement more and more with different sectors within our communities, like the disability sector, the elderly, the women, the men, the youth, whether it be girls, boys, children, all sectors of communities, and the business sector as well. I've mingled with and trying to understand with the issue when it comes to electoral reforms. I'm sure anybody who's been following our Twitter spaces is some of those things that we've been going around and did quite a lot of voter education at the same time during the rural visits. I think in the last 6 months. And trying to understand, people's cries and what their issues are and so forth. So you did find that there was a myriad of issues that people were voicing out. In regards to electoral reforms that we voiced out to ZEC, and trying to have a unanimous agreement with other parties as well to see if we can push some of these ideas forward so that we're not seemingly bashing ZEC, but we're trying to be inclusive in the way that we speak to them. It's just that sometimes there's been so much bashing prior to perhaps emerging parties coming in, so hence I think it's a protraction of the whatever ZEC failed in the past. Hence it feels as if us continuing to talk about the same or singing the same song in terms of the negativity on how we view ZEC is being seen like that. But then you look at it that exactly what President Charles voiced out there. It's a repetition of those same issues. So hence I think ZEC may feel bashed because we're just repeating the same thing, perhaps just a different voice, but same sort of issue. The independence of ZEC is something that was voiced out, quite a lot. That they're not seeing, they're just seeing an extension of, the ruling party with ZEC, having a collaborative effect in terms of, how the constitution, in terms of the political rights, and how the electoral reforms, are laid out on the ground. And another issue that we did come to see was the issue of media, having access to media as opposition party, and looking at media as well in how it is being used by ZEC. I think as we see, I think ZBC is the main production media institute in Zimbabwe, but you're seeing that I think most of the information that's passed out there is mainly is much more on a selective part rather than it saying exactly I think what people really want to hear. These are some of the issues that especially the media team were voicing out, as well as people in the communities. And I think you did see as well, I think the accreditation of observers, which was another issue whereby I think people voiced out that can we not have a juror system? A juror system in the court of law is whereby you've got members of the community, unknown but known, on census and as citizens of such a country, where you get picked out, whether it be representation from different parties, to come in as observers, working alongside ZEC is something that that has been voiced out as a concern. And then you've got the issue surrounding traditional leaders. I think being given some sort of leeway in terms of how they command the number of people within their regions, in terms of how they channel their voting voice or their voting choice. That was another issue. I'm sure we did see that. I think with the recent by-elections of I think one chief, having been involved or being an imposter of an observer or one of the executives, of handling the ballot system. And another issue that was there pertaining to traditional leaders was the assisted voters system. I think though, I think it said, I had, I think Jasper yesterday, Jasper Mangwana yesterday, I think I spoke about the assisted voter and saying the rule maintains that only one confidant is allowed to assist, one voter. But quite a lot of things were voiced within the traditional leaders in that they are becoming assisted voters to so many people within their constituencies or that region that they look after in terms of channeling the vote where it's supposed to go. I think you're looking more on the way of which party they favor most, and that vote within the assisted voters has to go alongside. So you're seeing a number of people being used as assisted voters. So the thing that Jasper was saying about, just having one confidant is something that's not being seen on the ground. And I think the issue again is on the voters' roll. That's one thing we've voiced out in terms of having a demographic figure in each and every constituency so that we know the number of allocation of the voters' roll. So that we are not surprised whether we see huge numbers, coming out of nowhere where we say 10,000 people registered to vote, but we're seeing that the total amount is coming up to 15,000. So that's some of the things that we say, if we can have access to the voters' roll register and the demographic numbers for each and every constituency, I think we should be privy of that. I think I did hear Jasper coming out, I think the issue of data protection, and so forth. But I'm sure, I think we can give out voters' rolls without putting in too much detail of such a bit, but then the numbers can be given with an indication of some sort of an aligning number that can just give out the number of the total number of voters. Voters roll. So another thing that we did see from people was the issue of the demarcation itself. We're talking about the delimitation issue, whereby we're seeing a lot of issues in regards to encroaching areas. You're looking at, I think, urban areas encroaching into rural areas. So that's some of the things that have been voiced out, that, there isn't any clear direction in terms of the delimitation process. Though I did hear that Jasper said, he was going to submit a report 6 months prior to the delimitation activity, somewhere around August. So we're waiting to see, how that's going to turn out, because if we can be privy to such information, I think we can see the allocation of the delimitation and the encroachment area, to see that we're not having quite a lot of urban areas now being put under the rural areas. I think I've got quite a lot of examples here that some people have voiced out in regards to the concern of how the delimitation is being handled, so far now. I think they voiced out, areas like Mount Pleasant Heights, encroaching now into Marsh Central East, that is, Mazoe. They need a clear understanding, to what limits, though it was said that it might be, 20, minus 20, plus or minus 20% of this encroachment. So we're trying to understand, the limit, to that, and how far this is going to be, attained. We've got areas, like Glenview Extension, which is obviously a peri-urban area being extended, under the Marsh West. We've got Dangamvura houses now encroaching into neighboring constituencies. We've got the Greenwood area under Gweru Rural, and as well Pumula South, which is now encroaching into Nyamandlovu. We've got the Mausekwa farms around all that area, whereby quite a lot of, urban farms, are now encroaching into rural
I
constituencies.
hate to interrupt you, but please round up.
Sorry, yes, yeah. So with that, these are some of the issues, that have been voiced out in regards to the demarcation and people not having privy to the information prior to it being exercised. These are some of the things that you expect that the residents or citizens, should be privy to, so that we've got an understanding of, because obviously the parliament would have had a talk about this in terms of the demarcations. We know that, this is meant to facilitate the process of elections in a country in dividing several constituencies. We haven't got a problem with that. But it's just that the task of delimiting the constituencies is normally performed, by the commissioner themselves, but the power to delimit is with the parliamentary and the assembly constituencies. This is what we want, and this is conferred, to the president as well. So we want to be privy to such information. And, the president, usually gives the order, to say, they can release this information of delimitation through the advice of the election commission. But what you find is you normally find the Association of Parliamentary Advisory Committees with the Delimitation Commission mission, gives priority to political considerations. So this is where an issue, comes out, whereby you've got virtual power in the hands of the ruling party to decide about the contours, of the constituencies as it is suited to its designs. So these are some of the things that we want to be privy to, of which this should have been given out to political parties, prior to the delimitation process, commencing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Muyenziwa, for that. So this was the Forus President, President Muyenziwa, and she, is also touching on the issue of the independence of ZEC. They feel that ZEC feels like an extension of the ruling party. She also bemoans the issue of access to the media, particularly the state media. Opposition political parties are not.
So sorry, Lynette, if I can just have 1 minute, just 1 second or 30 seconds. I forgot to put in, I think, the issue of the BVR system. To have an understanding, we should have information on those who have been registered on the BVR, and we are pushing for it to be exited, I think, within the rural communities to cater, I think, for such people in terms of I think you can use that, if you're using mobile offices, which is what Jasper, I think, mentioned yesterday in regards to places like, is it Urungwe? He said Urungwe and another Rengo mines. Whereby they're far away from their district offices. So you might need to have, so there was a question there that, would they be applicable in the sense of having mobile offices to be given to areas that are quite far away from their district offices. And I'm sure if we had to have, I think, the BVR system, it doesn't have to be limited to an office. These mobile offices, are quite useful. And the BVR system actually works much better with mobile offices. So which makes it even better for that to be exerted. And as well, I think accommodation of those in disability community, because we know that there's roughly about 1.5 million.
President Muyenziwa, thank you very much.
Thank
I'll give
you.
Another opportunity to speak. So she was talking about the BVR transparency in regards to information dissemination. The delimitation issue is on their agenda. Access to the voters' roll. She also bemoans the issue of assisted voters and the issue of traditional chiefs. So thank you very much for that. So now we want to move on to our next speaker. But before we do that, let me just welcome those that are just joining us. So in case you're just joining us, you are tuned into Open Parley. This is Open Parley Twitter Space. The program is a Twitter rally, and we are looking at the electoral reforms. Is the Zim opposition serious about reforms? I mean, there has been a lot of talk around the political playing field being uneven, contestation of electoral election results. And time and again, local and international observers are recommending for electoral reforms. And what has the opposition done? How important are these electoral reforms as we head into 2023 elections? At this moment in time, allow me to welcome Ellen Shiriedenga. She is the National Deputy Secretary for Elections with the Citizens Coalition of Change. Welcome to the program, Ellen.
Thank you, Lynette, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me and to this platform. I will speak with regards to the CCC position with regards to electoral reforms. As a party, we take these reforms seriously, And clearly, because they are very detrimental in terms of, shaping the electoral landscape of the country, particularly looking at the processes that lead to any harmonized elections. For example, we talk about the issues to do with the voter registration, voters' roll, delimitation, and also looking at the elections themselves to say how is the landscape there. So this is why, as a party, we have a document which we termed PRICE, which are principles for reliable, inclusive, and credible elections in Zimbabwe. And we are in the process of crafting another one, which would be more of our pact as we try to engage, as we try to engage other electoral stakeholders with regards to the issue of electoral reforms. When I listened to my colleagues, they spoke broadly about the key issues. I'll not dwell much into the specifics with regards to the electoral reform issues, but I will speak mainly on just a few issues which I think are critical. The first one, as a party, is we take seriously is the supremacy of the Constitution. We had our Constitution in 2013, and our Constitution is very clear when it comes to the broader issues relating to elections in Zimbabwe, particularly on the role of ZEC as an independent institution, taking it from Chapter 12 of the Constitution, to say all all independent institutions should not be directed or be in control of anyone. That in itself speaks to the independence of ZEC and as an electoral body. But then, in practice, we look at the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act, as much as ZEC, yes, the functions of ZEC are explicit there. We're looking, for example, in terms of crafting the statutory instruments and regulations, which will help in advancing its mandate of delivering a free, fair, and credible election in Zimbabwe. But then we look at the role of the Minister of Justice, which is still glaring in the Electoral Act. I think it should be section in section 192 to say that whatever laws, electoral laws, that should be promulgated, ZEC should get the nod of the Minister of Justice, which surely is a contravention of the Constitution, where Chapter 12 institutions are said to be, not in the direction or control of anyone. So, given that the Constitution came into effect in 2013, and we are now in 2022, clearly there is no political will, to actually change these laws to suit the constitutional dictates. And this is why whenever we approach as a party or even as other political stakeholders, whenever we approach ZEC to say no, there are certain issues of concern. For example, when we talk about the role of traditional leaders, the role of the issues to do with vote buying, the media, like we speak of unequal media coverage. Whenever we approach ZEC will say no, but we don't have enforcement powers, and this should be derived from the code of conduct. And then that code of conduct really, they say they don't have the powers to do that. They are waiting for the Minister of Justice to effect the electoral amendments. But then you are saying, Electoral Act to actually, promulgate regulations and also statutory instruments of go. And then also in the process, they need to liaise with the Minister of Justice, but into that effect. But then we are saying that we have never had a situation where ZEC came out in the public to say, no, we have consulted political stakeholders, we have crafted, the draft regulations and approached the Minister of Justice to effect them. We have never had them that. So really, we have a problem there in terms of political will of of our elections management body and also the Minister of Justice to bring into effect the alignment of electoral laws into the constitution. So this is our major concern as a party, to say that the supremacy of our constitution is not respected. And then our one other critical issue is the right to vote for all citizens for all Zimbabwean citizens, including the diaspora. This is very critical when you look at it, because our constitution is clear that anyone who is 18 years and above has the right to vote. And now we see a situation whereby, we have the prisoners, for instance. We have a very large prisoner population in Zimbabwe, and all those people are left out in the electoral, in the voting processes. And also, my brother spoke strongly about the issue of the diaspora vote. And this is one of our key issues of concern as a party, to say the people in the diaspora, they've contributed to the country's fiscus, but at the end of the day, they are not given the opportunity, to express their voice in the governance of this country. So, but looking at the constitution, they have the constitutional right to vote because they qualify as citizens. But that has not been respected. So the diaspora vote is a key issue, and which we need to work on. And also, there's the aspect to do with the aspect to do with voter registration. Voter registration, it's very clear. Everyone has the right to register as a voter, so that that person participates in electoral processes. But as the current situation prevails, we are seeing a suppression of the youth vote in Zimbabwe, taking into account, for example, the first and second voter registration blitz, where ZEC went around the country registering voters. But then we noticed that in Zimbabwe we have a youth population of over 2 million youths that were 13 years and above in 2018. So that youth population qualifies to register to vote. But then looking at the total number of people that registered during the blitz is just over 160,000. And literally what that means is that there is about 92% of these so-called targeted youth that did not register to vote. So, and then primarily because those young people did not have identity documents. So as much as it is the role of the RG's office to issue those documents, but then at the end of the day, ZEC has a constitutional mandate to ensure that each and every eligible person has the right, is accorded the opportunity to register as a voter. This is why, as a party, we strongly feel that ZEC should have enhanced its engagements with the RG's office, so that they are able to harmonize their calendars, so that once the RG's office has issued, the youths with identity card documents, and then those same youths, they'll be given the opportunity to register as voters. But then we see a situation whereby ZEC went around the country without attempting to register voters, and then, and then currently as we speak, the RG's office is actually issuing out identity documents, and then now what is left is for those people that will have just been given the identity card documents will now have to fork some money, like in some instances, for example, in nearest description is 100 kilometers. So what it means is that those youths that would have registered, that would have been issued with identity cards in Victoria Falls will have to fork money and travel all the way to Wange to register to vote. So we feel this is an issue that should be addressed. And then there's the aspect to do with media and political freedoms, which we as the CCC are strongly advocating for. Yes, the constitution is clear on the equality or on the fair media coverage, but then if you watch ZBC like today, and you'll be lucky if you're an opposition party member to be given full coverage compared to what is happening, what the coverage that is being given to ZANU-PF. So this is one area of reform that we are strongly advocating for. We are saying there is need to ensure that there's a code of conduct that will actually regulate the conduct of media players as they cover electoral processes or electoral campaigns. And same applies to political freedoms as well. The constitution is clear with regards to the security of the vote, and also that the aspect that one should vote in secrecy, but this is not happening. And if you look at the violence, the intimidation that occurred during the 26th March by elections, and those also that were held on the 7th of May, there were lots of violent incidents that were recorded, even culminating to deaths, where the CCC, where we lost one of our colleagues in Bizo.
Ellen, I hate to interrupt you. Please make that your last point.
Okay, no, that's fine. So as a party, we are saying the electoral law should have, a code of conduct that will regulate the aspects to do with violence, vote buying, and more so even, the role of traditional leaders in electoral processes that needs to be addressed. So I think for now, I'll stop there now, proceed later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Ellen is with the Triple C Citizens Coalition for Change. Thank you very much for that. So Ellen talks about the issue around vote buying, and she was concluding, she spoke about vote buying and the importance of a code of conduct. I'm just wondering how effective this code of conduct is, because the code of conduct is already there, and
Yeah.
also talks about the issue of vote buying. It talks about the issue of non-violence, but this already continues in our electoral landscape. I will come back to you on that. So she talks about the supremacy of the Constitution and how the independent institutions, the so-called independent institutions, are not independent, especially the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Um, yes, and she talks about political will, around electoral management and the issue around voters' role, diaspora vote, and the prisons. I want to go back before I open up. I'm now going to open up to the floor. So if you want to be a part of this conversation, please feel free to ask for the mic, to request for the mic, and I will give you an opportunity to comment or ask a question. I'll come back to you, Nyasha. Nyasha is from APA. Nyasha, your first port of call was the issue around media reforms. What have you done? Because that particular part for me didn't come out. What have you done as a political party, to advocate for media reforms in Zimbabwe?
Hi, thank you for that question. So, as I was alluding in my presentation in the beginning half of the show, we are into consultations with stakeholders. So, as APA, we like to align with people and organizations, especially CSOs, that talk about these issues. We have done extensive work with ZESNI and with the ERC as to how we can best lobby, advocate for media reforms in a sustainable manner. We don't think we know all the answers, but however, we want to engage with everyone that is for any people agenda. So, in terms of what we have been doing, we are in engagements with CSOs, organizations that are for Zimbabwe and want to lobby for these things. And we are assisting in how we can now thrust our political voice to these challenges. And some of the things that we have discussed with these stakeholders, such as ZESTI and the ERC, is how best can we advocate for media reforms so that we can best come up with a policy structure.
Thank you very much for that response. And to what extent have you engaged the opposition? Because if you listen to the presentations made by everyone, including you, the issue of media reforms is also on each and everyone's agenda. What have you done as a party to reach out to other opposition parties? I mean, they say if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you have to go together. What have you done as a party to engage other opposition political party?
Thank you for that. So, in light of it being Africa Day tomorrow, I'll share a Nkrumah quote which says, "The forces that unite us are greater than the influences that keep us apart." And in light of that, APA is a Pan African party, and we have been coming up with a database, although very slowly, to see which political parties that we can engage with. Of course, there are some political parties that do not necessarily share our core values that we have as a social democratic party. We haven't, as of yet, physically done some outreach with opposition parties, but I can assure you and confirm as spokesperson that we are constructing a database where we will discuss with the opposition. I believe we are in week 50 of the electoral cycle. So definitely by week 40, we will be talking to opposition parties about these things. We're still assessing the ground, still assessing the values that are there, etc. And we will go there so that we can also bring something to the table for them as well. And we can then go together as a true united force advocating for these things we all feel passionately about. So I'm very pleased and excited to be with these fantastic colleagues that are on this platform. And I'm definitely going to go back to the base and say these ones seem to have the same core values that we share. Let us go and get in touch. So that is the process.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I also want to pose the same question to President Mutama. You said that you held a press conference, you submitted a petition to Parliament, but you were disappointed because opposition political parties, other political parties did not engage. Did not engage you or offer solidarity or support. What did you do yourself as a party to engage them? Because a press conference is a platform for you to reach out to journalists. Yes, they disseminate that information, but did you also take a deliberate step to engage some of the opposition political parties? I'm asking this question because unity is a very important component in trying to get the results that we need.
Oh, thank you, Lynette, for that very good question, which I'll answer by enlightening you on the parliamentary process of petitions. So, when a petition is submitted in Parliament by an individual, or an organization, or a group of persons, or a political party which is represented, it is announced to members of Parliament represented by the political parties that are there, such as ZANU PF, MDC Alliance, and Triple C. So they are quite aware of our petition. And as I mentioned, that the petition has now reached a portfolio level. And in these portfolios, different political party legislators are represented in these portfolios. So they are privy and they are aware of this petition and for the call for the diaspora to be allowed the opportunity to vote. So it is astonishing that the, they simply did not respond or take up this petition to the floor so that it could be debated. By now, we could be at a certain stage. Probably, we could have reached consensus between the majority party and the minority parties in parliament in terms of crafting a bill which would allow the diaspora to vote. And then I want to go a step further to exonerate Zimbabwe Electoral Commission officials and traditional chiefs who I've realized are taking a bashing in terms of how they are accused of manipulating electoral processes. I feel the issue is not about Zimbabwe Electoral Commission officials. They are just mere public servants. And then, of course, our traditional chiefs, our esteemed traditional chiefs, are also at the mercy of the party which is in power. However, the whole issue that we are discussing is grounded on the issue of all Zimbabweans coming together and understanding that we have a patriotic duty to defend the gains of our independence and to come together and be united, like what Lynette is saying, so that we can understand and acknowledge certain issues as being non-partisan, such as the issue of elections. These are non-partisan issues. The same way we will deal with foreign affairs issues, they are non-partisan issues. So we need to really come together and to have national cohesion, to have a national vision in terms of where we want our country to go, in terms of how we are going to interact with the foreign nations. But internally, as Zimbabweans, we should agree on certain factors so that our country can move forward economically and politically. So let's deal with the hygiene issues that have a lot to do with patriotism, to do with the love of country, to do with the independence, the liberation struggle, the core values of the liberation struggle, to respect our luminaries would be free to move around in our country. Then we can start debating in parliament freely without fear nor favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Let me quickly move on to our next speaker, President Muyenziwa from Forus. You spoke about the issue of assisted voters. What have you done? Okay, you have noticed this. You have engaged members, different areas, and different stakeholders. What is it that you are going to do about this? Because already the problem is there, and we're headed for the 2023 elections. What is your plan?
Yeah, I think we have asked Zek, I think, to present us with the inclusive, I think the side of an inclusive policy, especially for the disability community. I think we did find that it's roughly about 1.5 million people who are disabled in the country, but you're finding only, I think, 5% do vote, and that's just the 5%, who were able to who were able to register to vote or had the necessities, to allow them to get to voting. And those are such people, because you're looking at people who are blind, people who are on wheelchairs, and so forth. So you're finding that they actually require much more assistance, and of which, they've been left out, or outcasted when it comes to the voting system, and how they can be included in such a pathway, of which it does affect them. And obviously, their voices need to be heard. I think even they were talking about representation in parliament, of which they've not seen one alike, to them, that should represent them on these issues. So I've gone around speaking to them, and I've written to Zach just to find out what is it that they're doing in regards to the disability community or any other people, who are not able to get to where the ballot paper is, and how that can be. So I'm still awaiting to hear for that reply, and see how best, they've been, especially for the 2023 election. We would like to see, I think, a massive change, I think, when it comes to the disability communities, where the voting is concerned. So I await to see, how they're going to put in some sort of assisted services, or any buildings, or how they can enter into buildings. So, and because they did say, quite a lot of buildings have got steps and all of that, and how to get there. Even those who are blind, they need assistance and things like that. So these are some of the things that actually ZEC should look on their social concept policy when it comes to voting, how that can be implemented and things like that. So I think the mobile office would be something that can help. I think if we can have as well the demographic figures of those who are disabled, so that we can understand, where those mobile offices can be deployed. Thank you very much.